So far we've looked at the number system, rationals, irrationals. That was the first thing we did. Then we looked at converting repeating decimals to fractions. After that, we looked at approximating square roots and numbers in general. Then in the last couple of videos, we used the laws of exponents. And now we're going to be finding solutions of square roots and cube roots. All right, let's get started. So finding solutions of square roots and cube roots. Okay. First things first, what is a solution to an equation? A solution to an equation is just a value you can plug in for x that'll make this equation true. Okay? Let's see what I'm talking about. All right? So right here we have x squared equals 16. Okay? So they want a solution to this equation. Well, that's the same thing as saying get x by itself. Okay? So what we can do here is we can take the square root of both sides. Okay? So first things first, we have x squared equals 16. Okay? We want to get x by itself. X is not by itself yet. To get x by itself, we need to take the square root of both sides. Okay? And add a plus or minus here when you do it. Okay, I'm going to show you why. All right. First things first, when you take the square root of x squared, the squared cancels out and the squared sign goes away. Okay, so now you're just left with x equals plus or minus the square root of 16. Well, plus or minus the square root of 16 is just plus or minus, we know the square root of 16 is 4. Okay, so that means the solution to the equation x squared equals 16 is, really we should say the solutions, because we're going to have two, a positive 4 and a minus 4. So the solutions to the equation x squared equals 16 is x equals plus or minus 4. Okay, so why are plus and minus 4 solutions to this equation? Okay, well, let's look at the equation again. Okay, so the equation here is x squared equals 16. All right, what happens when we plug in a positive 4 into this equation? What do we get? We get 4 squared. I'm taking a positive 4 and I'm plugging it in for x. We get 4 squared instead of x squared equals 16. But 4 squared is 16, and we get 16 equals 16. That's a true statement. Okay? Now let's see what happens when we plug in negative 4. All right? So when we plug in negative 4, we get negative 4 squared equals 16. Okay? But negative 4 squared, remember, thing squared is thing times thing. So negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4. So we're going to get negative 4 times negative 4 equal to 16. Okay? But what's a negative times a negative? A positive. And what's 4 times 4? 16. So here we're going to get 16 equals 16. Okay? And note, we get the same thing for both the plus and the minus 4. Okay, that's why plus 4 is a solution, positive 4 is a solution, and minus 4 is a solution. Okay, because both when you plug in these numbers for x, you get a true statement. Okay, that's pretty much what it means to be a solution. All right, let's look at another example. Okay, so this one says, what is a solution to the equation x squared equals 36? All right, so we're here. Okay. What is the solution to the equation x squared equals 36? Okay, so first things first, let's write down the equation. We're going to get x squared equals 36. Okay, to find a solution pretty much means to just get x by itself. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to get rid of the squared. So we're going to take the square root of both sides, and we're going to add a plus or minus right there when we do it, okay? So now we're gonna get these square root and the square to cancel, and we'll just get x equals plus or minus the square root of 36, okay? But what's the square root of 36? Just 6, so we get x equals plus or minus 6. So these are gonna be our solutions, okay? Why are these the solutions? Well, what happens when you plug in 6 for x in this equation? You're gonna get, instead of x squared equals 36, you're gonna get, for the positive 6, you're gonna get positive 6 squared equals 36. And what's 6 squared? Well, 6 squared is just 6 times 6, which is gonna be 36. So you get 36 equals 36, which is a true statement, okay? What happens when you plug in negative 6 into this equation? Well, you get negative 6 squared equals 36, okay? Negative 6 squared is the same thing as negative 6 times negative 6, okay? Equals 36. Negative times a negative is a positive. 6 times 6 is 6. 6 times 6 is 36, so we get 36 equals 36, okay? And no, we get the same thing again, okay? We get the same thing. 36 equals 36 and 36 equals 36, okay? That means plus 6 is a solution and minus 6 is a solution, okay? And negative 6, all right? So next one says, what is a solution to the equation x squared equals 15? Okay, well, let's go check it out, all right? It says x squared equals 15, okay? So what's the first step? The first step's the same, all right? We're gonna take the square root of both sides. The square here, the square root and the square will cancel out when we do that, okay? And we'll get x equals, don't forget the plus or minus the square root of 15, okay? So what that means is the solutions, or I guess we could say the possible solutions, to the equation x squared equals 15 are x equals plus or minus the square root of 15. Okay, these are the possible solutions. Either x equals plus the square root of 15 or minus the square root of 15. Okay. Let's look at one more example. Oh, and note here that we didn't know the square root of 15, right? We knew the square root of 36 is 6. In this case, we don't know the square root of 15. Okay, we can just leave it alone just like that. Okay, the plus or minus still stays the same. You just leave it alone. Okay, so here we changed square root of 36 to 6. Instead, here we'll just leave square root of 15 as square root of 15. Okay, we don't have to touch it. All right. And then here's another example. It says, what is a solution to the equation x squared equals 10? Okay, well, same thing. Okay, you take x squared equals to 10. Okay, then you can take the square root of both sides. Okay, the squared and the square root sign here will cancel because of that. We have our plus or minus, okay, and we'll get x equals plus or minus the square root of 10. Okay, and note we can't do anything with 10. Okay, we'll just leave 10 alone, just like that. All right, so the two equations for this example are going to be x equals plus or minus the square root of 10. Okay. This next one is asking us, what is a possible solution or value for x in the equation x squared equals 40? Okay, so what is a possible solution? Okay, so a solution or a value for x in the equation. That's just asking us what could we plug in for x to make this true. So all we have to do is what we did the previous few times. Just find the solutions for x. Okay, so if we do that, we will get x squared equals 40 to start off. Okay, then we're going to want to take the square root of both sides to get the x by itself. Okay, because when we do that, the square sign goes away and the square root sign goes away. And we just get x equals Don't forget the plus or minus. Okay, it's very important. The plus or minus is very important. It goes there every single time you take a square root. Okay, so we get x equals plus or minus the square root of 40. Okay, so you could say, if maybe you wanted to write a sentence, you could say a possible value for x in the equation x squared equals 40 is x equals the positive square root of 40 or x equals the negative square root of 40. Okay, either one. All right, these are both solutions. Okay, that's why we do the plus or minus, because they're both solutions to this equation. All right, okay, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.